Unpresidented Art in Common Cause. And I wanted to just talk a little bit today about my experiences as a little bit of my biography as more like putting this kind of thing together, and about my involvement with charitable endeavors and pop-up shows, and then talk a little bit about the election and how this desperation that caused this to come about, and also the philosophy and the goals of this particular exhibit, and how it relates, to what's going on in politics right now in our society, and give a couple of pointers on what the future would be. If we continue this, or do, and what other people can do too, as far as helping out. Pull a Ted Cruz here. Thank you. Okay, so a little bit about myself. I've been a practicing artist for nearly 30 years, and I come from a very small town in Indiana. So there weren't a lot of opportunities for artists where we were at. There weren't that many commercial galleries, there weren't that many alternative spaces or anything. So we had to do a lot of our own shows. And we used to do shows in bars and nightclubs, and there's a theme here about what we did our shows in. And this was before people called them pop-up shows. We called them guerrilla shows. Because we would come in, we'd hang the work that day, we'd take the work down that night. It was that quick. So we did several of these shows, and by happenstance, we began to do these shows in conjunction with charitable organizations. And I remember vividly doing a show for an organization called CanCo, and this CanCo was an organization that supplied emergency daycare. So what would happen is you'd be enrolled in this program, and if the parents felt that they were losing it, and that they potentially would be abusive or neglectful of their children, they could take their children to this organization, go away, get their shit back together again, and come back. So, okay, this is a great organization. So we put on an event, had artists, had a band, charged entry fees. We raised a lot of money for the charity. We raised enough money to buy the materials for a playground. And then another construction company donated their time and built the playground for the kids. Because that was like my first experience with tying my artwork to some kind of charitable endeavor. Now, as an artist, I'm going to put my artist hat on for a second here. As an artist, I don't see my work as socially active. But that doesn't mean that I can't use it in a socially active way. And I think a lot of artists feel exactly the same way. Social activist art is not really all that common, and a lot of it's not really all that good. I mean, let's be honest with each other. A lot of it's very didactic, a lot of it preaches to the choir. But it doesn't mean that artists aren't empathetic and artists don't want to give back. But it doesn't always relate to what they do. And this was an opportunity for me to relate my work to other things. When I moved to Chicago, I became involved in donating artwork to various AIDS charities, which was a common thing in the early 2000s, late 1990s. We were going back to the golden age. So I donated work to the DIFA's Art with Heart, and then the Weiss Memorial Hospital's Art Against AIDS, which later morphed into Art of Human Rights when it was taken over by Heartland Alliance. So we did that. I did that for quite a long time, but it gave me, I've always had a problem with the structure of what they do, because it was set up as an auction. Now I'll get to that a little later on, because that has a bearing on why I didn't do this as an auction. And then the latest thing that I've been involved in, before getting involved in this, has been a show called Breaking Criminal Traditions, which, and Chandrika is involved in that too. And it is a show which strives to bring awareness to criminal practices that are accepted in other countries. Things like child marriage, acid attacks, honor killings, all those kind of things that, which no culture should accept as a way to act toward other members of their own culture. And as opposed to like the auctions and things that I was involved with before, I was more involved with this. I've been on panel discussions with the group, and got more involved in the actual philosophy of why we were doing what we were So that kind of led me to, that was the planting the seeds of thinking that I could do this when push came to shove and something had to happen. All right, so that brings us to the election. So that's the kind of lays the groundwork for where my mind was at and what my skill set was when the election happened. And I have to say that the day after the election, I was overwhelmed with a sense of, excuse me, of powerlessness and betrayal. Those are the two main things that I felt when I woke up that morning and realized that Donald Trump was going to be the president. And I think a lot of other people felt the same way, intently. I mean, I lost sleep. I don't know if I had a good night's sleep for at least 3 weeks after that election. I mean, I did not know what was going to happen. You know, it was just very, very, a very trying time. So I was addicted to social media after the election, looking at what other people were saying, trying to find some kind of lifeboat. You know, can the electoral college knock this guy out before it actually happens? I mean, anything that would make it feel better. And one of the things that I saw was that a friend of mine, her name is Sarah, she lives in Santa Fe, posted an image of one of her paintings that said, if you will buy this painting at a deep discount, I will give all this money to Planned Parenthood. And I thought, now there's a positive idea. So I posted a painting earlier that day, and I said, all right, I'm amending this. My friend Sarah's done doing this, and if I sell this, if you buy this painting, I'll give all the money to the Southern Poverty Law Center. And that is where the idea started. So, I'm gonna get my notes here real quick. But it took a little while to germinate, right? So my wife Linda was gone one weekend visiting her mom. I went out to eat, had a bit too much to drink, walked home, and I sat down on the couch watching TV. I turned the TV off, picked up a pen and paper, and I wrote down the structure of the show in that one brainstorm moment. And then I came up with a letter, you know, and in that moment I said, okay, this is what I need to do. These are the people I need to contact, I need to find a venue, I need to find a bunch of artists. And that was it. And then I started, I think the next day, after Linda got back, I told her what my idea was, and she said, yes, you should do this. So I sent out an email, and some of you who are in the show got a variation of this email one way or another. James Deeb here. I'm organizing a benefit pop-up exhibit and want to know if you're interested in participating. The working title is Unpresidented, Art in Common Cause, but that may change. Obviously, that didn't happen. The show will be at Space 900, a co-op gallery in Evanston, March 17th through March 19th, with an opening on March 17th. It works like this. Each artist donates a smallish work and picks a charity/organization they want to support in light of the incoming administration. This is from like the 9th of January, or actually earlier, this one's from the 11th. If the work sells during the show, 75% of the sale goes to the artist's selected cause, and the other 25% goes to the artist. Alternatively, the artist can tap 100% of the sale go to the cause. The show has no aesthetic theme, and the work does not have to reflect the cause. Interested? And that was the letter that went out. Behind the scenes, I had actually written up a set of goals for the show. And I was working on a manifesto for the show, but I realized that the manifesto went against the community base that I wanted to have. So I never finished it, and I never showed it to anybody. But the goals remained the same. The goals of the show were what drove me to do this in the way that I did it. So we had the structure, I had the venue, artists were expressing interest. And then Linda and I had a second little brainstorm. So we went out to dinner after the waiter cleared the table off. We got like a piece of paper. We said, this is what we need to do, nuts and bolts, to get this thing to work. And it was a lot of work. I mean, it had two effects. It said, okay, one, this is going to be a lot of work, but two, it's doable. I mean, we know we can handle this amount of work. So that gave me the drive to say, it's possible. The thing that gave me the drive to say that it was worthwhile was going to the Women's March. So on the day of the Women's March, and I saw the energy of what was going on at the Women's March, I said to myself, not only is this doable, but it is very much worthwhile doing. And that is a very